Hi, this is Rick Stevens. Today we're going to play the soon-to-be-famous Denny Hovas Memorial Golf Course. It's a course I've been working on for a couple of weeks, and I'm pretty pleased with it. It's got a couple of interesting holes. But to give you a little bit of information about it to start with, it's got 4 tee boxes. The red tee box is 6,189 yards. The white tee box is 6,876 yards. The blue tee box is 7,385 yards. And the black tee box, or the tips, is 7,635 yards. So it's a fairly long course as courses go. We're going to create a match here, and we're going to play from the black tees, which is the tips, and we're going to play hole position 1. Pin position 1. There are actually 4 pin positions, but we're going to play pin position 1 to start with. So we're going to go ahead and get started. It's going to take just a few minutes to load up, and we'll do a flyover on all the holes so you can see what the holes look like. But this is hole number 1. It's a 371 yard par 4. It has a stroke index of 8. That was assigned by the game. That's based on the number of people who have played the course and what their scores have been on each of the holes. And since there haven't been a whole lot of people played this course yet, I don't know how accurate those indexes would be, but we'll go with those for now. But we're going to tee up and go ahead and start this round, see how we do. Our first drive is down the middle of the fairway. We're going to have a little bit of wind today, so we're going to have to deal with that. We're now about 104 yards from the pin. We've got a little bit of wind in our face, so I'm going to go ahead and use a sand wedge here and see if we can't get this close to the pin. Well, we're on the green, not as close as I would like to be to the pin, but if we're fortunate, we might be able to sink this very first putt here. It's about a 15-foot putt, a little bit of right to left break. And we do, so we start the course off, or the round off with a birdie. It's always good for the confidence to birdie your first hole. This is the first par 5 on the course. This is hole number 2. It's 593 yards, and it has a stroke index of 16, so it's not considered very difficult. It's just a long hole. But it's one of my favorite holes because of this lake that's coming up in front of you. You always have to lay up your second shot because very few people have enough distance that they can cross the lake with their second shot. So when we play it, we'll probably get us a good solid drive and then try to lay up as close to that water as we can so we can chip onto the green. So since we have a left to right crosswind here, I'm going to target a little bit to the left and see if we can't stay in the fairway. The wind is a factor at this level. Now on this shot, like I said, I'm going to try to set it up so that I can just get right down that hill as close to the water as possible without going in it. Because it's way too far to the green. Just hope it doesn't roll into the water. Alright, that's exactly what we wanted to do. So now, we're 90 yards from the pin. It's it's elevated 5 feet. We still have that crosswind, but since it's such a short distance to the flag, it's not going to be that big of a factor. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this lob wedge, see if we can't get it to the green. Looks looks like the wind did take it a little bit. That's because we had a lot of elevation from the lob wedge, I guess. Okay, we've got a green here that's breaking two ways. At the front of the putt, it's going to break right to left, and as you get towards the hole, it's going to break left to right. So I'm going to basically putt this as if there's very little break. Let's see what it does. Well, it can go in the hole, but we're close enough to par it, and that's the important thing. And we do. So we're still 1 under par. This is hole number 3. It's a 453-yard par 4. The game is giving this a stroke index of 2, which they're saying is a relatively difficult hole. You can see there's lots of undulations in the fairway, and there's a valley right there in the fairway that comes back up to the green. So from the tee box to the green is pretty level, but you're going to, depending on where your first shot ends up, will determine, whether the green is above your feet or even with your feet. So we're going to go ahead and line up our shot here. We still have the left to right wind, and it's 12 knots or 12 miles per hour, so that's significant. We're going to try to hit this hill and get a little extra yardage. Got a pretty good roll out of that. We got a 280-yard drive. So that leaves us with about 169 yards to the pin. That's enough to be problematic with the wind, so I'm going to target my shot at this sand trap and hope the wind is strong enough to keep us out of the trap. And it is. Now let's stay on the green. Ooh, didn't quite make the green in regulation. We're going to have a little short chip to get as close to the pin. And see, we have a right to left slope, so this could be a challenge. We're close. We might be able to par this. And we do. We save par. Okay, still 1 under. This is hole number 4. It's a 427-yard par 4. Has a stroke index of 4. You can see that it's pretty straightforward. There's one little fairway trap there. Two little greenside bunkers, one on the left and one on the back. But the pin is open, so it should be fairly easy to roll a golf shot up there and get fairly close to the pin, which is what we're going to try to do. Our difficulty is dealing with this wind, which is going to be about 12 knots right to left. And trying to stay in the fairway with a crosswind like that is sometimes a challenge, but we managed to do it again on this hole. Okay, our second shot brings us 151 yards to the hole. The green is elevated by 8 feet. We still have mostly a crosswind, but not enough. It's more of a tailwind. So I'm going to stay with an 8-iron and see if we can't get this thing to roll up to the hole. Well, we're on in regulation, but we're going to have a little bit of a putt in front of us. As a matter of fact, we're going to have a 17-foot putt with a left to right break. Looks like it's quite a significant break too. And it's going to be downhill. So both of those are going to be factors in our putt. Didn't quite give it enough, but I gave it enough to save par. And I never complain about a par, so I'll take that. Okay, this is hole number 5. It's another par 5. It's a 551-yard par 5, and it's a stroke index of 12. As you can see again, it's a pretty straightforward layout on the fairway. Lots of undulations. Most of the area to the right and left of the fairways are light rough. There's not a whole lot of really heavy rough unless you get way off the beaten path. This one's got a greenside bunker that's strongly protecting the front of the green, so it could make your approach shot just a tad bit difficult if you are trying to get it close. We're going to deal with this 10-mile-an-hour wind and see if we can keep it in the fairway. Okay, we're 285 yards from the flag. Since this is a par 5, it's not likely we were going to get there in 2. So we're just going to go ahead and use a 3-wood. Get it up there close. Maybe use a lob wedge to drop it in there. Maybe a flop shot or something. See if we can keep it close to the pin. Okay, we're 57 yards. It's 12 feet up, so a lob wedge might not be enough club. So I'm going to go ahead and use a sand wedge. And we have that 10-knot wind, but again, we're not very far away, so I'm not going to compensate for it too much, but we need to be aware. And there we go. I'm happy with that shot. Okay, we have just a slight break right at the hole, from right to left. This will be for birdie, but of course I missed it. So hopefully we won't miss the par cut. And we saved par. But we probably should have birdied that hole, but sometimes the birdies get away from you. This is hole number 6. It's a par 3, 144-yard par 3. It has a stroke index of 10. You can see it's protected by a front and back bunker. But the hole again is in the center of the green. This is pin position 1, by the way. And as a result, it should be a fairly easy hole to get to without a whole lot of difficulty, except for this pesky little 12-knot wind that we've got. Alrighty. We're on in regulation, which is always a good thing. We've got a 28-foot putt. It's downhill for the most part, and then when it gets towards the green, you can see there's a right to left break. Not too bad, but enough to make it something to concern yourself with. And we birdie the hole. 28-foot birdie. Can't beat that with a stick, but I'll take it. All right, this is hole number 7. It's 375-yard par 4. They say this is the easiest hole on the course, and it may or may not be after more people play it, but it does have an elevation to it, and then it also has a downslope as you get to the green and a large front greenside bunker to protect it. But the green is far enough back into the pin is far enough back into the green that it shouldn't be too big a deal to get close. We have an 11-knot wind left to right, so I'm going to compensate for that, and we're off on this hole. Okay, this is our second shot. We're 125 yards from the pin. It says that it's 5 feet below us, but that's mainly because as you approach the green, the fairway slopes down. So I'm going to play it straight up. I'm going to use a pitching wedge. I'm going to play for the 11-mile-an-hour wind, but that's about all. But I should have played for the sand trap, because that's where I'm at. See if we can get out of it and get close enough to save our par. I'm not going to use a sand wedge here. I'm going to use a lob wedge, and I'm going to pitch it out of there. Chip it out of there, really. And we're close enough to par this. So we should be able to save par. And we do. So after 7, we're still 2 under. This is hole number 8. It's a 234-yard par 3. This is one of the first holes I worked on. It's made a lot of changes since then. But it was one of the holes I was practicing on to figure out how to design this course. And it's got 2 bunkers protecting it, one in the front and one in the back. But it's a pretty flat green. I mean, it's one of the flattest greens on the course. So if you can get on this green in one, even though it's quite a bit of ways, if you can get on this green in one, you might be able to birdie it fairly easily. We're going to use a 3-wood. See if we can get around that trap. Okay, we managed to get on the green. Let's see what our putt's going to look like. Like I said, it looks like it's pretty straight. There's not much, there's very little breaks, if any at all. We just need to make sure we give it enough to get to the hole. And we do. So we birdie again. Like I said, that hole's pretty easy to birdie if you can get on it in one. So now we're 3 under. This is hole number 9. This is a 474-yard par 4, stroke index of 6. At the end of this hole, I put a concession stand because most people at the end of 9 could probably buy a beer. And I've got a restroom facility here also, over here on the right. That's that little brick building. And I got a couple of little park benches and some trash cans in case you just want to kind of take a short break before you make the turn. Still have an 11-knot wind, so I'm going to try to compensate for that and hope it doesn't go into that trap. And we missed it. Thanks to the wind, I'm sure. Otherwise it was heading right for it. But we ought to be able to reach the green from here. It's a 200-yard shot, but it's an 8-foot elevated green. We ought to be able to get there. But because it's 200 yards, I'm going to compensate for that 10-knot wind again. And I'm going to use a 5 metal hybrid. And that might be enough. And I like the shot. We have an opportunity for another birdie here. Even though we do have that right to left slope, we do have an 8-foot putt, and this is in the zone where it makes it difficult for me to get to sometimes. But I got it. So it gives us another birdie. So after 9, we're 4 under par. We've shot a 32. We're going to make the turn and go to some of my favorite holes on the course. This is hole number 10. It's a 482-yard par 4. The game's giving it a stroke index of 7 right now. Again, it's a pretty straightforward course, but that lake you see over there on the right is going to come into play on holes 12 and 13, which are my two favorite holes on the course. Again, the fairway as you approach this green slopes down to the green. So if you get a good shot, you can roll a good ways toward the green and take advantage of that. But it is a relatively long par 4, but we should be able to reach it. It's a 201-yard shot, but because we have that roll down the fairway there, we're going to try this hybrid out and see if we can't get enough on it to reach that slope of the fairway and roll it to the pin. And not in the trap. Just barely missed the trap. But we should be able to chip this close to the green. Close to the hole. If we don't hit it too hard, and we might have. It's going to be a challenging putt to save par. We have about a 10-foot shot, but it looks like it's really straight, so I'm not going to play for a whole lot of break, hardly any actually. I'm just going to see if I can get it to the hole. Got it. So we parred it, we saved par, even after that second shot not getting us on the green. Okay, this is hole 11. It's a 624-yard par 5. It's the longest hole on the course. And it can be a difficult hole at times because of its length, but the course is giving it a stroke index of 15 because so far, based on the number of people who have played it, they must be scoring pretty well on the hole. But it's going to take 3 solid shots to get to this hole. We're going to line our shot up here. We've got a tailwind. That helps us out quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and pull out our driver here and see what we can do with this tailwind. Didn't get much out of it because of the uphill nature of that fairway. But we still have 355 yards to go. I'm going to pull out my 3-wood here and see if I can't get it up the road a bit. Okay, that was a 245-yard par 3. That was pretty good. We're 112 yards from the pin. It's 13 feet below us. We've got a 9-mile-an-hour tailwind, or crosswind really. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit a sand wedge here. I hit it a little short because of the nature of the fact that the green is below our feet. Let's see if that's enough club. And it looks like that was the right club. Now we're looking at another birdie. We got a 4-foot putt here. And I can't even make a 4-foot putt. That's awful. Okay, now we're going to struggle to save par because we still have that break. And this time it's a 7-foot putt. But we saved par. And a par is always good. Okay, this is hole 12. This is one of my favorite holes. The lake on the left there is intimidating, and the fairway is just there for looks. The trick on this hole is to get to the green in one. It's a 233-yard par 3 with a stroke index of 11. That water comes into play because if you hit it too far to the left, you're wet. If you hit it too far to the right, you're in those trees. So we're gonna, and you got to use a big wood to get there. So, and we got a headwind right now. So I'm gonna push it towards the center of the green a little bit, and hopefully we can roll it on. Nope. That's what makes this hole hard, is trying to get it on in regulation. And so what we're going to need to do now is we're going to need to get us a good chip shot in order to save par on this hole. Hopefully that won't be too far of a putt. The good news on this green is it's pretty flat. So if we can just get it to the hole, we might be able to save par. And we do. This is hole number 13. This is also one of my favorite holes. You see that lake, it crosses out a large portion of the first part of the fairway. And unless you're a short driver, I mean, it's really not a problem unless you can't hit the ball 200 yards. But we're playing from the tips, and so we're going to have to hit the ball with almost everything we got. It's a 590-yard par 5, hole 13, stroke index of 9. There's a greenside bunker on the right front, which is protecting it, but the pin is in an open position on the left. So we're going to go ahead and line our shot up. You can see that we've got enough club to get there. The difficulty is playing with this wind, making sure that this wind doesn't become a factor and put us in the water. So it looks like we got us a decent shot going. The undulations at this part of the fairway are pretty significant as well. It's going to take 3 to get there, so we're just going to pull out a 3-wood and go ahead and crank it up and see what we can do with it. Okay, we are 56 yards from the hole. Hole's elevated about 3 feet. It's probably not going to be that big a deal. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a lob wedge here. And I'm pretty sure that should be enough to get us over the sand trap and close to the hole. And it did. So we're on in regulation, which is 3. And now we have another opportunity for a birdie. But we still have this 5-foot putt with a right to left break in the green. Let's see what we can do here. Can't get it. And I hit it so hard that we're going to leave ourselves with a long par putt. As a matter of fact, I got a 10-foot putt here on my hands. We might be bogeying this hole. And we are. Okay, so we're going to see our first bogey of the day. And that takes us to 3 under with our first red number on the scorecard. This is hole number 14. It's a 220-yard par 3. Stroke index of 13. Pretty straightforward hole. Should be able to get to it in one. It's going to take a fairly strong shot, but you can do it. There's nothing stopping you from getting to the green. You just want to be careful on this particular green not to overshoot it because of the sand trap in the back. So we're going to pull out a 3-wood here because we've got a headwind. And go ahead and see if that'll do the trick. It seems to be the right club. We just didn't compensate properly for the wind, I guess. But we're on in regulation. It means we got 2 putts to get in for a par. And once again, this hole is pretty straight and flat. Not a lot of break. So let's just get it downhill and into the hole. Missed it. But a par is good, like I said. And I'm always willing to take a par. So after 14, we're still 3 under par. This will be hole number 15. It's a 447-yard par 4. The game is considering this to be the hardest hole on the course. Not sure why that is. It's a pretty straight hole. It doesn't have a whole lot of, hazards there. It's got that sand trap at the right side of the bunker of the green there, but that's about it. And again, with hole position or pin position 1, the green is fairly open and should be relatively easy to get to. And in this particular case, we have an 8-knot tailwind, so should get a little extra on our driver, except that I sliced this ball, but I managed to keep it in the fairway. Okay, we're 152 yards from the green. We still have 7-knot headwind, so I'm going to drop down to an 8-iron. I'd rather be a little short than too long. So it turns out that dropping down was a smart thing to do, because we rolled to the back of the green. Okay, but we're on in regulation. We have a 32-foot putt, which is going to start out downhill, and then it's going to go uphill to the hole. So this is going to be an interesting putt. And we might be close enough to save par. This is pretty straightforward. And we did. We saved par. So after 15, we're still 3 under. We come up to hole 16, which is a 482-yard par 4. It's got a stroke index of 3. Take the aerial view of this hole so you can get a good look at it. Greenside bunker on the left. So there's really, again, nothing that makes this hole particularly difficult, except for the fact that it's a long par 4. But we have to remember we're also playing from the tips. And in this particular case, we've got a little bit of a headwind, so it looks like I'm going to hit the rough on this one. That's not going to help a long par 4. I'm in light rough, though. Like I said, most of the rough on the right or left of these fairways is light rough, so I can usually go as high as a hybrid in the light rough. and still get a decent shot out of it. But I didn't stay out of the rough, so we're going to have a tough shot at par in this hole. This time I'm 81 yards from the hole. I've got a headwind, so I'm going to go ahead and hit an 8-iron. And it'll probably come up a bit short, but we'll see. Well, looks like we did okay. We still have a shot at par in this hole. A little bit of right to left. Break. It's a little uphill. But if you don't hit it hard enough, you'll never get it to the hole. So we're going to end up with a bogey here. See, that gives us 2 bogeys, both of them on the back 9. Takes us down to 2 under par as we come up on hole 17, a 460-yard par 4. Has a stroke index of 5. One of the things I like about this course is that the fairways roll. There's a lot of ups and downs in the fairways, and kind of makes the course a little interesting. Again, nothing intimidating about this hole. Just don't want to hit it long when you make the approach to the green. Managed to stay in the fairway this time. But that shot leaves us about 168 yards from the pin. Have a tiny bit of a tailwind, but it's more of a crosswind at 9 miles an hour. I think, and we're 14 feet elevated on the green. So I think the tailwind will compensate for the elevation. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this 6-iron. Okay. We're in regulation on the green again. But we've got one heck of a putt to make here in order to birdie this hole. It's 11 foot with a huge, huge break. And we missed it. Now we've got an 8-foot putt. Looks like it's pretty much not as bad a break. It's just uphill. So we just need to make sure we give it enough. And we did. So we saved par again. Still 2 under for the round as we approach the final hole of this course. This is a 475-yard par 4. It's stroke index 17. In version 8, this was stroke index 1. So the more the people play it, the harder this hole may become. But because of this trap that you see right here in front of the green. The second shot can make it a little difficult if you've got a long way to go. And it's the risk-reward factor that you've got to deal with on this trap. We still have a little bit of a headwind, sort of a crosswind. We're going to play forward a little bit. See if we can sneak through these 2 fairway bunkers. There's a 261-yard drive. And we still have 214 yards to go, which is what makes that sand trap interesting. We've got a 7-knot headwind. I've got a 5-wood out, but a 3-wood is going to be too much. The green is 12 feet below our feet, so I'm just going to go ahead and go with the 5-wood and hope we don't get too much trouble. Okay, we're not on in regulation, but we're close enough and in the fairway so that we should be able to chip this ball and get it fairly close to the pin, which is what I'm hoping. Or maybe in the pin. There we go. What a way to end a round. A chip in from off the green for a birdie. So we ended this Benny Hovas Memorial round with a 3-under, and I hope you enjoyed the course. You're welcome to give me your feedback, and if you see anything that you think is not a good thing, then let me know, and I'll certainly go and work on it. So thanks for playing, and we'll catch you the next time.